And I'm going to welcome Sue Dixon, who is a priest in charge at St Mary's, to come forward and lead us in prayer. Welcome, Sue. Perfect.
Well, it's lovely to be here this morning. Thank you for asking me. Let's pray. Loving and gracious God, we give you thanks for bringing us together in a spirit of service to our community. We acknowledge the many people of our city, young and old, families, workers, volunteers, and especially those who may be struggling at this time. Grant wisdom and discernment to our mayor, councillors and the staff as they meet today. Guide their conversations and decisions that they may be made with fairness, integrity and compassion for all people. Help us to listen respectfully to one another, to value different perspectives and to seek what is best for the well-being of our whole community. Give us patience in discussion, humility in leadership, and courage to act wisely and justly. We ask your blessing upon this meeting, upon those present, and upon the city we serve. Amen.
Thanks, Sue. Please remain upstanding and we'll ask Jess to lead us in our waiata. Welcome, Jess.
I always get a bit nervous. E re re ra e aku wai Māori e maringi atura kia koutou e. E re re ra e aku wai Māori e maringi atura kia koutou e. Rangitata ki runga purerora ki raro te tai o ara te uru ki waho e. E re re ra e aku wai mihi e.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. Please be seated. Righty, welcome everybody. Thanks, Sue. Appreciate that. First, I'd like to welcome Nick and Rosie from Community Board. It's great to have you with us. I'll just acknowledge Kale Toomey from Pleasant Point Community Board as an apology. It just has to be noted. Just note that Councillor Piddington just has to do something for work and he'll be here in a few moments. So we don't need to note him as an apology. Either. We have no public forum, any urgent business, one in nature items that I'm aware of, any conflicts of interest relating to the agenda today. Councillor Pye.
I just have a couple in the PX section that I'll note at the time.
Okay, perfect. We'll do that. That's right. Conflicts. Any other conflicts? No, cool. Go now to confirmation of minutes. 7.1, council meeting on the 28th of April. If that's true and correct, can I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilson, yeah, question?
Your Worship, just in the minutes there, it indicated under a membership of LGNZ that I voted in favour. I actually voted against that so if that could just be corrected, please.
Yep, no worries.
Keep you company.
Just, I think we did ask for that. I did ask for it to be recorded, didn't I? Yeah. I thought it because I feel like it was you'd voted against, didn't you? Because I
just don't think you heard.
Oh, okay. No, I thought it was 9-1, so I didn't. No, I didn't. So, no, apologies. We'll look through and adjust that. That's fine. Okay, thanks for that clarification. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Happy to move. Councillor Shannon, thank you. Councillor Jackson, happy to second. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against carried. Move now to schedules of functions attended by Chief Executive. I'll move that from the Chair. Can I have that? Councillor Burt, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Functions attended by Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors. Thanks for those lists. That's really good. Mover for that, Chris. Councillor Thomas, thank you. And Councillor Scott. Put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Awesome. So we go to reports. Just a couple of agenda items we're going to be removing. We have Mr. Titheridge is unwell, so we're going to move 9.1 and 9.10 and 9.11 to development and growth meeting, and then we're also going to remove 13.3, which is the Redruth landfill renewal options, and we can talk to that when we come to PX. So welcome now, Logan and Nige, to speak to the 9-month report. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, elected members. Nice to be here to present the quarterly report from January through to March. So you'll see a lot of the detail in the report, but obviously in general there's been some significant headwinds in the face of current businesses with the fuel cost increases and things. So we've been spending a fair bit of time out in businesses just getting to understand where else their challenges lie and where we may in fact be able to help. Also been increased activity, as you'll note, in the new business and some positive movement in the tourism and visitor attraction space. But I'll pass over to Nigel to present through the report, and then obviously feel free to ask any questions.
Thanks, Logan. Morning, everybody. I'll take the report as read. Just a couple of things to highlight. As Logan said, sort of pre-Christmas, the optimism was extremely positive across all sectors almost, I think, coming into the Christmas period. Obviously, the headwinds around the fuel situation has stymied things a wee bit. That said, as we reported on in our Economic Monitor report on the front page the other day, we're bouncing back pretty well in some of those key areas around GDP and unemployment as well. So locally, it's fair to say it still is a bit patchy. The food processing sector extremely busy. The tradies, even talking to a number of the tradies, those with the good reputations are extremely busy. Those less so are struggling for work a wee bit. But that patchiness will continue, we believe. We're heading into what is traditionally a provincial winter hibernation. And I think it's all inherent on us just to get our hands around our local business and industry. The old adage of buying local is as important as ever. Retail is pretty tough at the moment as well. So. But yeah, look, across the rest of the report, a couple of things to highlight. Business inquiry for new business opportunities come our way through our referral sources and off the back of Make Timaru Your Business. One of them especially is quite well advanced into due diligence. We're introducing them to potential premises. They're after some kit in that as well. So that one's progressed pretty quickly. The aerospace workshop, we noted that was an introduction of our manufacturing sector to this burgeoning sector. The real exciting thing there is that straight away one of our precision engineers has developed I'll call it a widget because I don't know any other name for it, but it's looking like getting on its way to the International Space Station in 2027, which is pretty cool. So you will have seen the array of international media exposure recently. Front page of the Wall Street Journal, Sunrise Breakfast and the UK Independent. So we're looking to capitalise specifically on the US exposure. We haven't got an unlimited budget around promotion, you'll appreciate. So we're looking at utilising social media, particularly LinkedIn, to have a bit of a targeted approach, not just around workforce, but around new business into specific areas within the US as well. So that stuff's being developed. We're in the final stages of getting the first one of those underway. So things like ambitious Americans are quietly discovering, the place where ambitious Americans are quietly discovering Timaru is a low-cost, high-opportunity operational base and New Zealand's most livable and investable provincial district. So those are a few of the themes we're looking to weave through some of that work. Just on the tourism perspective, you'll have seen a successful cruise season completed. We've got good numbers over the next 3 years. The biggest cruise one's coming our way next year as well. And a notable increase in cross-visitor numbers, international visitor numbers through February and that as well, which was very pleasing. So we've recently refreshed the tourism website, and the economic development one is currently underway, and that'll aim to be completed by 1st of July. A couple of other things just of note. Caroline Bay Association, we thank Councillor Scott. She came with her council hat on as opposed to her VT hat on, probably both, and then a few others. And also Andrew Dixon from Council here. Caroline Bay Association, we've been in touch with them for a number of months and probably years, and we opened up the opportunity with them to hold a strategic session around the future of the Caroline Bay Carnival. So it was a really good step. They were very much open to looking forward, not backwards. The attendees provided a wee bit of info. We asked a few pointed questions of all attendees. The next step is actually going out to the broader community, because it is actually there as much as the Caroline Bay Association's Carnival, just to ratify and understand what are some of the ideas, because you never know until you ask. So very much a forward focus for them, which is great. So it was great to get around the table with them. And the final one is, I mentioned, I think in our workshop, we've been working with the Mayor and the CE around an update of our South Canterbury Grunt report, which I think will be a really good economic foundation or information that will help support the discussions you're all having with our near neighbours at the moment around Head Start, etc. So that report will be available. I caught up with Benji Patterson, who's doing it yesterday. That report will be available by the end of the month. So I'll be in touch, Your Worship, immediately after that. So happy to field any questions, comments. Suffice to say, we enjoyed the opportunity to talk to you through the workshop back in April, and those key matters that we discussed with you then are well underway, and we understand there was a general agreement around the table for the implementation of a quarterly, every alternate quarter economic briefing. So we look forward to hosting you, I believe, next quarter in relation to that, but we'll work with the CE and the office to arrange that. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Quick question from me, the CBX Energy, is there any further updates on that? Have you had an introduction with them yet? No.
Yeah, still trying. I understand Roger Gower, Prime Port Chair, has had some direct involvement, so we're just waiting to make that connection with Roger to make the connection.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
You haven't heard, Your Worship?
I haven't, no.
Thank you.
No, that's great. Questions, Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Nigel. Just going back to your business attraction, how is it that you go about prioritising your sector and business engagement here by, potential employment opportunities or potential GDP contribution, local need, for example, supporting secondary services to primary industry and what have you? How do you go about prioritising where you are putting your energy with these?
The identified, I suppose, what you call growth industries aligned to some of the strengths that we've got is where the initial priority is. But as you get out, the likes of agri-tech, future food and fibre, and then those ones around aerospace, etc. as well. But it's an interesting one. You put the feelers out either through the targeted social media or hard media campaigns that we provide, and what comes in is what we grab and attack. So we have our own priority around some of those priority sectors, but it's like anything, new business is new business. And depending upon the size, it may be one that we have a very direct or facilitative involvement with. If it's a smaller business, it's might be support around introductions, etc. as well.
So some of those larger businesses that we know are already delivering well for the community, do you approach any of those and say what sort of secondary businesses are we missing out of this?
Yeah. So part of we talk about local business advocates. They're 210 plus. That is us getting out with our existing businesses saying, look, we don't know everyone on the hood that isn't here. You've got suppliers, you've got customers, you've got business acquaintances, etc. Hey, who isn't here that you believe should be here? So it's the warm hand rather than the cold call, if I can put it that way. Yep.
Oh, that's cool. And another one, when we're having a look at the business development and the outcomes value added, data here from the Canterbury Mayoral Forum, the importance of refreshing the water strategy, etc. They have requested VT, Chief Executive joins them. Can that sort of data that comes out of that and that evidence, is that being fed back into through GM of regulatory and growth and development? Because this is the sort of thing that I think this helps to form our body of evidence for some of our demand projections. Is that coming through to him, or can you set that up?
So first of all, that has been deferred given the priority around Head Start. So this one later this week, that irrigation and then Apua NZ had asked me to dovetail in. Most definitely any information that I'm aware of through my role, whether it's something like this or whether it's, I was in touch with Paul Cooper, Aaron and Elliot. We were party to some Canterbury construction data out of master builders that help feed into some of the work we're doing through the development and growth. So yeah, most definitely any of that data over and above the likes of the infometrics or that other data that comes straight in, we definitely filter it into the house.
Further, anything on this side? Lefties? Right side, we'll go Councillor Jackson, then Councillor Pye.
Thanks for the report. Just one disappointing thing was we didn't make the top 10 most friendliest towns in New Zealand. Very disappointing. What can we do about that, do you think?
They need to talk to the cruise visitors.
I was just keen to understand the report that you're going to help with Apua Water and Irrigation New Zealand on the value of irrigation. How do they actually work out their economic importance? I'm kind of keen to understand what kind of data they collect there, and then how do they capture the, to use a Peter Burt analogy, flow-on effect from that?
I think from my perspective, it was the ask of me was more around some of the case studies of some of those key industries that are here, around, like the most prominent one most recently has obviously been juice products, that go to woe. So it's really talking to the value or the critical nature of water as an economic enabler. So the data aspect of it very much will sit with Irrigation NZ, I understand. So, I had a very small window, but it was more case study.
Again, it would be good to see that report when it's done. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I think it's we've been deferred until August.
Alrighty, thank you. Anything further? No. If not, we'll go to the recommendation 9.1. Can I have a mover that we receive and note? Councillor Harper. Thank you. Councillor Scott. Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Brilliant. Thank you. We move now to 9.2, Timaru District Holdings Limited quarterly report. Welcome, Fraser and Mark. Welcome, team. The floor's yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. Thank you for having us along today for presenting the quarterly report. I'll take the report as read and just touch on a couple of the key highlights. The financial statements show an ongoing positive performance based on the reliability of the property portfolio. Forecast year-end results are expected to align closely with budget, with balance sheet strength maintained. In regards to the financials, on page 69, the operating profit is 1.1 million compared to a budget of 1 million. Other income is at 800,000. That's the dividend from Primeport, which is 50,000 ahead of budget. The cash flow on page 70, you can see that cash flow from operating activities is at $1 million year to date, being 600,000 ahead of last year, and happy to take questions on the rest of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Now, questions for Mark and Fraser? Yep, Stu. Councillor Biddington, go for it.
Just on Alpine, it was trumpeted a while ago that Alpine and Aurora were going to merge or look at merging. Then the briefest of statements comes out saying it's not going ahead. I wonder if you could throw some light what went wrong, because it seemed so positive at the start.
We're still to have a full shareholders update on that.
I don't think I'd say what went wrong. I mean, I think they took a really thorough look at the options and decided that there wasn't the benefits that they needed. But yeah, like Mark says, we've got an update coming on the more of the detail around that.
So I was interested in whether we were too small or they were too big. That was all.
We don't have that level of detail at the moment, to be honest.
And they also weren't merging. They were just doing shared back office functions.
Councillor Pye.
I think I may have asked this before, but just in relation to Primeport, it seems as a shareholder it's quite different to being a shareholder of Alpine, and you don't appear to have, joint appointments, letters of expectations, and I just wanted to really understand the difference there in the shareholder activity.
We do have a joint letter of expectation, which we worked on with Port of Tauranga last year, the year before last, which we've provided to Primeport. And we do engage with Port of Tauranga on director appointments.
I was just saying I don't think that was reflected in the report. I got the impression that you don't do that. It's more of an individual shareholding in that respect.
Yeah, we engage with the chair of the board and the shareholding partner, and we make individual appointments, but it's through a collaborative engagement. I guess it's different to Alpine. In the past, Alpine was direct appointments by each shareholder without any engagement with others. We've moved that so that it's collaborative and collective now. The relationship with Primeport, with Port of Tauranga and the Primeport shareholding has been functioning well in terms of the skill sets and the conversations. It operates differently, but it was in a more positive place, getting positive outcomes. So, and we, as Fraser said, we did do that joint letter of expectations.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. The KPI says that identify and assess at least 3 new investment opportunities, right? The report says the board is actively reviewing new opportunities, so I realise there's commercial sensitivity around this. But has TDHL actually met that target of assessing 3 opportunities, or is that still a work in progress?
Yeah, we've met that. We've assessed more than 3 opportunities, and we continue to do so. We've got a regular paper that comes to the board about opportunities. We track those, and then there's detailed papers in behind on specific investment opportunities as those are progressing.
I was just interested in your hui with Arawhenua and what was the purpose, and were there any positive outcomes out of that meeting?
So the purpose was to reinforce the aligned values, the aligned investment purposes and the aligned focus of the two organisations. There's quite a bit of similarities across the two organisations because, we're both long-term intergenerational investors who look at investments which benefit the district. So it's been, so it was built on quite a few joint opportunities that have been looked at a management level, but it was about bringing the governance together for the first time to close that loop and to confirm the trajectory of ongoing collaboration on opportunities where there's joint overlap. So it was really, really good, really successful, and the two organisations are quite aligned on a lot of fronts.
All pretty good otherwise? Yep, thank you. We'll go to resolution. Councillor receives and notes. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Burt, Councillor Scott, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Awesome, thank you, team. 9.3 is actions register. So we'll just go to if there's any questions rather than going through them one by one, just to speed up some time.
I just have one question around my favourite topic, vertical infrastructure maintenance report. And we obviously got a verbal update from, I think it was Andrew, at the last meeting. But my question to that, and sorry, I'm just trying to find my page. Oops, that now does not want to open.
75.
The question is, sorry, I can't open my question, but it is, with the work, and the last time we got an update, it was that we're almost sort of completed that assessment and report, which is great. But have we been using the current information to lead into annual plan or LTP works? Because I presume there will be a lot of things that are coming up that weren't identified in the past, and I just wondered how we are capturing that to make sure we don't have a big buffer in the next financial year. I just wondered if you could provide me with an update.
At the moment, the annual plan for the 26-27 year is budgets as they were, and the work will inform the LTP. Yeah.
Anything further? Otherwise, we'll go to the resolution. Happy to move, Councillor Burt. I'll second that from the chair. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So 9.4 is resolution on supplementary reports, and that is the 9.5. Yep, go for it. Welcome. Yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll do the resolution because it's just what we need to do. So resolution's up front, so it's that we receive feedback, etc. So you're comfortable with that? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Shannon. Councillor Pye. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And then so we go to 9.5. Welcome team. Go for it, Steph.
Thank you, and through the chair. So what you have in front of you is, it's actually agenda item 9.5, but when we ran the draft agenda, the system assumed that it would be 9.6, so we'll just ignore the agenda item on the actual report. So this is really an update on where we're at right now with regards to the development and planned adoption of the annual plan on the 30th of June. Since we last presented to Council, we have undertaken community feedback. It was more of an informal consultation, but an opportunity for community to give us their views on what we had presented. You'll note in the report the number of feedback we received was quite low. I think that's potentially reflective of everything that's happening in local government. So, yeah, there is probably a lot more informal chats and discussions you've had with the public on the annual plan, but the formal feedback we received was 5. Further work that's been ongoing is additional budget reviews, making sure we've got them right. With the last 2 government announcements on Head Start and further release of information on the Local Government Systems Improvement Amendment Bill, we've identified that there are some resource gaps, particularly funding for things like solicitors' fees. We're going to need more money than what we had to be able to respond to these reforms. There is 2 further changes in fees and charges with regards to building control. One was a new fee that was driven by legislation, and as more information's come out about how this activity needs to be done, it was identified that the fee we had set was going to be too low for cost recovery, so that has been increased. The other fee and charge change is relating to separating a BCA and TA function, just to make it more transparent and clear for the community and organisations of how we're going to recover fees across the BCA versus the TA functions of the building control team. Happy to take any questions.
Questions, team? Yeah, go for it, Councillor Piddington.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned there's almost $1 million been added to it, which is over 1% on rates. And I guess some things are unavoidable, but I'm concerned when you have internally charged rates 400K, what does that actually involve? And how do we get it wrong?
So the internally charged rates are on the properties that we own. So at the time of setting the budget, the transaction for this year hadn't been processed, and so some of those areas that were meant to be charged rates didn't. So it's an internal transaction that actually cash does change hands. We do pay ourselves for rates. It was just overlooked in some of the activities.
Were they additional from last year? Because the only way we would miss it if they were new land, which I'm pretty sure we haven't bought anything
No,
for.
so they weren't missed last year, but the budget was set on the forecasting for this financial year. Yeah. So it's numerous activities that were all immaterial but added up to a lot. So it wasn't just one activity that was missing 400,000. It was numerous little activities adding together. Yeah.
I was also interested in this, 70K corporate overhead for Downlands.
So that's a cost to Downlands, which will be recovered through their rates. So there will be a offset from the Downlands rates as well. So when that transaction goes through the model, their rates will increase by the 70,000.
Yeah, go for it.
I was also concerned about the internally charged rates because I feel like we had this problem last year. And I'm more concerned about the processes we have in setting the budgets and how we're going to get better at that, because there's a number of papers in today's agenda where we just haven't budgeted for stuff that we should have. And so what changes are we making? And like Councillor Piddington, I too am worried that we've just kind of added another $1 million to the budget.
So we've had new staff come in, so weren't part of the prior year budget setting. And so going forward, there'll be a lot more time spent on doing better forecasting, which has only sort of started to come in this part of the year when we've actually used Magic a lot better. So going forward, the use of Magic on a monthly basis will get the managers more prepared for setting their budgets next year.
I think going forward, there is a propensity in the council to not budget for some things they know is coming up, but that's because council haven't made a decision, or they're thinking that the decision will come at some other point. So we're going to actually have to work out, do we budget for those things knowing full well they may get a tick or a no? So we're going to have to think that through as to when and how we put them into the budgets going forward. And I can think of 2 or 3 items in these agendas where actually a decision's never been made. Yes, probably an assumption should have been made in the budgets. So we're going to have to get better at that.
Yeah, so a lot of the changes that have been made have come from like the fuel increase, for example. So at the point in time, we'd left it status quo when we were building the budgets, but we've seen an increase over the last couple of months while we've been looking at the budgets. And then obviously with the reforms around professional services, they're all known costs. But once again, we don't want to budget for something and it doesn't happen. So yeah, there is that.
So I kind of feel like, and I get fuel increases, I understand that, but I feel like we just then add it into the budget rather than going, where can we save, to cover that increase? Because, you think about our ratepayers and household owners, when their fuel goes up and their rates go up, they don't just add it into their budget, they've got to make a saving somewhere else. And and I'm not saying we don't, but I don't feel like we do enough of where can we cut costs elsewhere.
I think quite a number of the fuel costs were in the parks area. So that's it. No, it doesn't, but that's the type of area where the majority of the fuel is. The pool vehicles, they have actually, the decreased use of pool vehicles and travelling when it's unnecessary, that has actually dropped. But then you've got the likes of the in-house parks teams that actually are out there all day, every day with vehicles. Yeah.
I think we're constantly looking for savings, and it's demonstrated in our results, and the results are way under the budgets. So whether you actually try and budget for such savings there's a bit of a trick there to work out how far do you pull those budgets back just in case. So maybe a fair point. Maybe we've got to be a bit more tougher on some of them. Also, the timing of setting the budgets versus the actuals is another piece that actually doesn't help with the budgeting, because the budgeting starts so early, and then when you start pulling those savings through, they come through in the actuals, but by the time you get these things all ready to come to council, and you should see, it just blows me away of how much work there is to set the budgets because of all of the fizzes and all the things like that. Maybe we've got to look at how do you streamline that a bit better.
Yeah, go for it.
I still am uncomfortable with the level of detail that councillors get. And if I use a recent example of a roundabout on North Street, and like we don't know that's in the budget, and how do we do that better without wanting to know every time you buy a paperclip? I'm just not sure we've quite got that right still, because we're we're approving this budget and therefore approving everything that you guys have planned in your various departments, but we actually still don't have a lot of visibility over what that planning is.
There needs to be a materiality level that governors work to. And I think the OPEX is generally fine. Like if you want to try and go down deeper, you don't achieve a lot. But the CapEx probably needs a bit more itemisation of the particular assets, particularly on roading and water. That's where you find them. And we've found this year that even with the renewals the renewals were never separated from what I would call emergency capital items. Now we're separating those, and that actually helps. But I do agree, there are a number of items sitting in those renewals that you probably need to look at more. And even we call them renewals, some of them are actually new. So yeah, it's interesting.
Appreciate that you agree, but what are we going to do about it?
Well, we're bringing forward that detail.
Yeah, I think it's a forward work program report as simple as that, and probably 6 monthly would be fine on the likes of roading, and potentially we have requested that through parks previously when we've had waterfall knocked over before we knew it, and those sorts of things. But I think that maybe is an action that we look at something there. Yeah, Councillor Piddington.
Next year, though, I'd like a running total of requests that come that aren't budgeted for, because every meeting, it seems we come, someone's asking for 50, 200, 250. The number would be quite big, and my challenge to staff is, if you need 80k for some roading that someone's missed or hasn't done, find it within your own budgets, because we just seem to be all over the place.
Typically they do. So typically if you look at the results, they are finding it, but we have also been asked by council to bring forward unbudgeted items. So they will bring the unbudgeted items to you, and yes, you'll say yes. So you can't have it both ways. You have to have it, you either have to have confidence in the managers to manage their budgets, or you are setting a regime up to actually create a situation where they are being approved as additional budgets. And maybe we need to do both. We probably need to bring them to you as well as we're finding it from here. Okay.
There is, in our financial report, there is a listing of all of those particular items. There might not be a sum at the bottom of it, but there is a list of all of the items that have gone through council resolutions.
It would be good to have that number in front of us before we give more each meeting. My point is, though, it just seems a bit loose. As Michelle said, we seem to see people have spent miles over their budget, hoping it'll come right at the end of the year. There are examples of it, and I just think we need to be a bit more rigorous, but I'll leave it there.
There's actually lots of issues. You just think about central government with spatial planning. None of us seen that coming. Head Start, none of us seen that coming. So there's a whole bunch of things that come along, and then you're constantly getting requests for additional work in various areas such as roading or parks and so forth. And it's hard for officers to push back and say no when they're coming from requests from community via councillors. So we need to get that right. We need to think about, okay, if it's not in the budget, we will say no. But we did witness the other day that you can create an environment where actually some smart decisions potentially don't get made because of the budget, not because of, I've seen some items lately where actually we should have done this, but because people use the reason of there is no budget, we didn't. So there's a fine line there that we need to actually work out. How do we bring that to your attention, so as you actually all know it and you all agree?
Right, Councillor Shannon.
2 questions for our Chief Executive. First of all, given the really good work that happened over the last financial year in terms of the money that was saved, and looking ahead at the budget for this particular annual plan, are you confident that even more savings will be found through this disciplined approach that our officers are taking? And
we're constantly finding savings, so that won't stop.
So then the second half of my question, do we need the surplus in this year when we're asking our ratepayers to go for an average of 9%?
The issue we've got is a lot of reform coming, and we're going to have to think hard about are we going to use some of that surplus for some of that reform, or are we going to be trying to borrow for that reform? And that needs to be thought through. Now, the surplus is pretty minimal at the moment.
Still represents 1% though, doesn't it?
Yeah, true. Yep, I agree. Can't agree more.
On that point, let's have a brief discussion on the submissions, because there's one submission that's come through and what does it say? I think it says it's disingenuous to note that the rate increase would be 3.7% taking out water. And this is the challenge I think community has. They don't understand that rate capping is only on other services of council. And so if our normal services are 3.7, if we're to knock 1% off, then actually that's water company stuff. So that's what you're taking from. So then water company just has to correct in mid-27 as far as their rating. So I think this is the challenge out there in the community, is people think rates capping is going to save the day. It's not at all. We're within a rates capped environment, and we know that. However, water's still going to go up on that trajectory, and it has to. Yes, we should be looking at savings, all those sorts of things, as we will be doing for LTP. But you only have to look down south and look at the problems that they got themselves into by not setting their water company up for success, and now they've got to catch up. So I think there's a real, unfortunately, in the public, the public just does not understand the realities of the cost of water over the next sort of 10 years, and it's going to be double. It's large single digits and double digits costs, and rates capping. We as a council think we can manage within that. So when we're talking 9, we actually need to start breaking those things down into what the public is for the public, to help educate them, because they're not going to get 4%. They're going to get 4% or 2 to 4% plus water bills, which are effective to deliver what they need to do under Commerce Commission regulation. So we need to be part of that story now. And so that's one submission. There's, I think, three or four others. I just want to see if anyone's got any questions they want any comments on. There was one which is out Geraldine Way, Oakwood Road, around quality of roads. Oh, sorry, Oakwood. Oh, no, I was looking at that name. I was thinking it was, oh no, there's another Magna out Geraldine, sorry. Yeah, you're right. No, sorry, that's it. Yeah, no, sorry. I was thinking, I was looking at the name and thinking Geraldine Road, which I've got to go and visit. And then you have Arawhenua and also Spokes. I think that was it, was it? Yeah, is there any questions, comments on those submissions? Yeah, Councillor Shannon.
Susie in here? Marvellous for Susie. So we were talking about these rural roads. Is it actually time to publish some of this information and data, including traffic counts, the ranking priorities, the maintenance plans, the costings for the unsealed roads, that not only inform our LTU plans and budgets, but could help rural residents actually decide on some of those targeted options in case they wanted to explore them themselves? Because it's one of those really difficult things for our rural residents to understand when we've got so many kilometres of unsealed roads, and we talk about levels of service, the weather impact and what have you. It has to go through a long, drawn-out feedback process of via a councillor, then to you, and then you've got to send somebody out for a look. Why can't we seal this road? And then you have to look up the data to say where it ranks and the priorities. Is there a package that could be published so that people could just access that and understand and even make some of these decisions for themselves?
Yes, there is some of that already published, but obviously there is a lot of data and there's a lot of complex information that goes in behind, and the frameworks are all in the asset management plan that we use. As far as seal extensions do go, I mean, there's the policy is published, which is, you know, there is no budget for seal extensions. Yeah, it's a tough one to get quite a, I suppose, technical lot of information into something that is succinct that the community will understand and appreciate. Oftentimes, it's not liking that the answer is no, that we can't do a seal extension. So I'm not sure if giving them information on how we maintain the unsealed roads, noting I've done a couple of workshops now for previous council and council on that particular subject, whether or not that would help the situation. But certainly open to daylighting any information that would be seen as beneficial.
Well, those workshops, they've always been very beneficial to us, and say we get some feedback and we speak to you, we do deliver back in plain English a reason. So we need to somehow publish that plain English reasons why, so that they don't have to go through this process that we have to go through. There's some way to interpret the data that you use to make these decisions so that somebody could say, I live in that road, you know.
Yeah, certainly there's some work that we can do. I'll have a chat with our comms team on what we can pull together. We're still working, we've done a whole heap of asset management data standard transfer stuff, so once we've worked through that, we'll be able to have a lot more public-facing information of the data itself. But yeah, as far as being able to look up your road, we're not quite there yet, but we can certainly something we can put on the program, Scotty, to have a look at.
Imagine how useful it would be before you went out and purchased a section for a lifestyle block if you're actually able to have a look and say that's never going to be sealed, rather than move there and then ask for it to be sealed.
Would be great. We do actually have it on our limbs now, on unsealed roads. So yes, they are told if they obtain a limb that there is no seal extension program.
So, just with Bill, if the council are wanting to have an annual plan with less than 9%, you probably need to tell us what you are thinking today, because there is so much work that needs to be done to create that annual plan. Now, at the moment, it is being documented at a 9%, and when it comes back to council, it's only a few days before the 30th of June. So effectively, the 30th of June, when it's being, when the annual plan's being adopted, it'll be too late then to actually start changing, because we'll be running out of time. So if there's a thought that it might need to look different, without making a decision, we need to think that through now.
And you're going to be focused on the 3.7, not the water aspect in all reality. So that's the conversation you're having if you want that to be lower. So think of it in those terms.
Can I also just circle back to a week ago when we were looking at the scenarios of what it might look like in 3 years' time, taking out potential shared services for water, rates capping, the impact of, not necessarily having 9 this year, so anything less than 9 this year will ultimately make those future years harder to achieve.
Councillor Thomas.
Your Worship, I think just relating to the submission that you referred to about the disingenuous comment. I mean, for a ratepayer, there is an increase of 9% or average, 9%. And yes, it's important to relate the part of that rate that is relevant to the fixed rate capping, which you've highlighted and said we're 3.5 or whatever, sorry, whatever the number was, sorry. Is it 3.5, is it? 3.7, okay. But overall, it doesn't really matter to the ratepayer because they're going to have to stump up with the whole lot. And so I think our comms around that, yes, I agree they need to be clearer so that because there's two issues, the overall rate and how much of that is going to be subject to rate capping in the future. And I don't think that we've got, I think we can do a lot better about actually explaining that.
I agree, because the overall rate is likely not to come down. People are just going to be charged two different buckets, and the rates capping isn't the silver bullet. You know, this is the challenge. And maybe people will look at it differently when they get a utility bill, you know, and they'll put it in the electricity bucket, and then possibly think water's not too bad relative to your electricity costs. But that's the challenge. I want to pick back up on those submissions. Is there anything else on those submissions? I'll go Councillor Jackson, then Councillor Pye.
Thank you. Firstly, I was surprised that, you know, with a 9% rate rise, we only got 5 submissions. You know, I would have thought we would have got a lot more than that. Just interested to comment on the first submission that comes up here from Te Runanga Arowhenua. Says here the council has clear responsibilities under the Local Government Act to maintain and improve opportunities for Te Runanga to participate in decision-making processes. Improvements must be continuous. 226 must be better than 25 and 27 better again. And I've got a number of requests here, so I guess I'm just wanting to know and to be in the loop as to are we making sure that we're living up to those commitments with the dialogue we're having with them.
The majority of those requests from Runanga are actually governance, when you look at that. So if you look at the list, quarterly mana to mana meetings between the Mayor and the Chair, that's for the Mayor to do. Participate in the development of the Council's water services strategy. Well, that's going to be via the water organisation, and Runanga will be involved in that. Participation in special planning related development decisions. Now that is a regional spatial plan, so we are working with Runanga.
That's probably not technically correct at this stage. We're working with Ngāi Tahu.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not Runanga, so do separate the two. Yeah.
Representation on appointment panels for governance and CCO roles. That's governance. That's for like our various committees, and a full review of Council's procurement policy with our participation, which we don't do.
Which we've just done. I guess on that question, so I'm Nigel and I are catching up with Fiona Pym on Wednesday afternoon in Christchurch, and so those regular meetings do occur. It's actually sort of on Arowhenua a little bit because they're it's normally a hui at the marae, and it's been previously around the 5 councils, so it's Ashburton, Timaru, Waimeri, Mackenzie and Eken. So that does happen, and we're having one on this, and I'm assuming we're going to discuss this on Wednesday. So, you know, we can discuss it now, or I can get some of your feedback over lunch if you like on those specific questions. Councillor Pye. No. Oh, okay. No, perfect. And then, yes, Councillor Harper.
Thank you. Look, I've just got these Magda from Oakwood Road. I think sort of what she's referring to here, and obviously she explains it well in her letter, but I'm just wondering how, and I have been down this road, how well the snap, send and solve is working. Her claim is that she's done it twice, I think, and it's sort of been a wet summer, and you know the frequency of grading is, you know, over the wet summer is needed a bit more, but just it's a side road, obviously that it's not an arterial gravel road. How are we going to solve this business of our rural road, certainly out of Geraldine, and frequency? Do we need another grader? Are we, you know, how's the budget going to stretch for all of this? This is a dog of a road.
Yeah, so Snaps and Solve works well. We do respond. Excuse me, that response might not result in action. So we, again, going back to the data that we do have a lot of information on, so we'll go and do what we call a road run, which is measurement of how rough that road is. And so we might get a complaint about a couple of potholes in one location or some corrugations in one location. And so we'll go and do a road run. It will give us our roughness rating for that road. And if that fits within our level of service, then we won't actually action any physical works. So that can be seen as we haven't done anything, but we have confirmed that the road in its current standard meets the level of service that we are able to fund. So that can be the issue. I'm not saying specifically about that one with Oakwood Road with those issues. I'm not entirely sure without looking into the detail. Often our roads do meet the level of service, they just don't meet the level of customer expectation.
Just a supplementary. Is that available to the residents?
We haven't got it public facing yet. I'm not saying that we can't do that, but it's quite a lot of technical information using Power BI and things at the moment. So we'd have to simplify that, so we can certainly put it on the program to make that more available. But yes, on request, we do provide it, and often we'll go back to the complainant with the data saying, look, sorry, we've had a look, but actually it does meet the level of service.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and then the question is, do we put more rate money at it, or we're doing that Benji report again, which again speaks to the underfunding that we're getting back from central government. Then you look at the likes of Oakwood Road, great example of development at the time, rural subdivision, lifestyle subdivision, appropriate road was never put in, should have been paid for by the developer. Now it becomes a council issue. And people have bought because actually some of those ones have been affordable lifestyle, and then you have all sorts of problems with heavy horse floats at the bottom needing to get up, etc., etc. So yeah, interesting challenges. But I think for us, if we're to raise the level of service, we need to commit to increase the rate take.
I think my questions around the $1 million has been answered, but I just can't but help feel a little bitterly disappointed by the community's response. And I just wondered, what did we actually do to gather this feedback? Was it just Facebook? Did we do print? Did we do media? What did we actually do to engage our community in feedback?
We had a standard sort of information document that went into the courier, so that was posted to most people in the district, which offered hard copy feedback avenues for people. We've also been pushing on Facebook, and it's been on the front page of the website. Because it's a informal feedback rather than a statutory consultation, it's about getting that cost balance from people. And we often work on the theory that if people are genuinely very, very unhappy with what they do, what we are proposing, which isn't that far off the long-term plan that we did consult on quite significantly, that we have to do that cost-benefit analysis about spending that operational expense to try and get one or two more submissions versus actually just providing the information to people at the end of the day. This was really more about providing people the information of what was happening going ahead rather than sort of garnering specific feedback. But the feedback is a good extra bonus for you to help make your decision on. At the end of the day, with ones like the annual plan, the decision is very much in your hands about where you want to take it.
Can I just ask a question on the annual plan draft 3 at the bottom of that? It's just around revaluations. We have none, is that correct, in the next financial year? Because there's no numbers there. So we're not revaluing any assets next year.
The water is getting redone this year, and roading was done last year. So we're in that cycle of it will come into the long-term plan. So no, there's nothing next year.
Not doing our buildings or anything that haven't been done for a long time.
No.
I'm just concerned that we keep kicking the can down the road.
Well, we made that decision to change to amend the accounting policy to hold them at cost, not at revaluation. Now, if council wants us to revalue, the depreciation will go through the roof because it's been so long. And that
I guess I get that, but we're talking amalgamation, and we said we don't want other councils to come up with surprises. And, but you've been pushing hard to fund depreciation. I just don't get why we're doing something that we are not doing something that we should be doing.
well, it's in our accounting policy, so that's not a surprise. So anyone doing due diligence will look at the accounting policy and they'll go, oh, yep, they're at cost. Now, if council, we can bring the paper back to council if council wants us to revalue our buildings, then we will do that, but it will have to be an LTP item.
So just an update. So there is work currently being undertaken around investment properties, which are revalued every year. So we've got a number of properties that are currently sitting within our normal asset register that actually should be in the investment property and therefore revalued on an annual basis. So we are in the process of, one, identifying what the investment properties are, because we have, and it's quite complicated, you might have a piece of land that's a reserve land, but you've got a kindergarten on the corner of it and you've got a scout hall over here, of which we don't actually own the buildings, and it's actually more complicated, I think, than people actually understand. So we're doing that process now. If there is movement from PPE to investment property, they will be valued at the end of this financial year. So there'll be an additional revaluation coming in for that. So the properties that essentially will be left will be council-only properties, like this building, for example, or, CBA property, or, those kind of things. So it is work in progress, but if we decide to go land and buildings for long-term plan, then that's another exercise that can be undertaken.
I think maybe just a high-level overview of what is and what isn't at some point, because, again, all the new projects are going to be depreciated at the appropriate rate, so there's a lot of money tied up in them, so that's, job done there, but just so we understand the expense of the problem, if you like. We might just record that as an action, actually, just register. Thank you. Any further questions before we go to recommendations? Anything further before? No? Oh, God. Okay. Just give you a moment to read through recommendations again, and if someone's happy. And sorry, I will just raise, because the opportunity is now and not after we pass this, to have a conversation about the rates. If if there is someone wanting to lower them, bearing in mind, in my view, it really needs to come from that 3.7. Councillor Shannon, and to the point CFO's made, this is. Yeah, I think the LTP's where we should be having a real crack at this stuff. Go for it.
Yeah, just go. The point of my question to the Chief Executive was about the necessity, I suppose, of the surplus in that financial year. Taking into account CFO's comments about how it then impacts on further years, and also that you are confident you will. I know there's these one-off costs that are coming up that you will still find savings. Just before I say, yeah, go ahead with this 9% average, can you confirm, Mr. Trainer, that we definitely need that surplus in this next year, that we're not going to find it throughout the course of normal activities?
No, that is inside that. It's inside that finance of $1 million surplus. So that's in there. Because while there's 997, 470 of that is actually internal charges, so it doesn't hit the bottom line. So the actual surplus is less than what it says there. So the amount that actually goes to rate is actually only 520 of that 997. Hope Stu heard that. Good. So, well, it gets down to whether you want to actually run a break-even or a surplus. A surplus would actually start chipping away your debt, or it would help to cover some of the costs that are coming at us with reform. So it gets down to the appetite for that.
Yeah, look, for me, we have to be running small surpluses, and if we're serious about the debt element, then it's smart. Go to Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I thought it was time I said something, because I know a few months ago when we started talking about the rate increases, I was probably one person that was considering a figure lower than the 9, just based on my short background. But having seen the significant changes in the workload over the last 2 months with regard to, reorganisation of local government, all the rest of it that's been thrown on us, I've probably changed my position on the basis that a slight surplus, I don't think is being, because I remember I'd said once, having a surplus when the households are struggling didn't seem right to me at the time, and it probably still doesn't to a degree, but the world has changed for us since then. And I think a small surplus with what we're faced with, the unknown costs, I think it's quite a prudent position. Can I just also add, with the 4% capping, I think the public need to understand that the 4% capping is, as it's been rightly said, only part of our business. I think I've heard people say that the future is looking great when we're going to be capped at 4%, but that's not reality, and I think I know you've covered it, Your Worship, but the reality is that the water charges are going to be significant, and it won't be anything like what they think. So that needs to be our message anyway. But again, I'm just, in summary, I've come around to the view that this is probably a prudent position to take.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Anyone else? Otherwise, we'll move to recommendations. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Jackson, thank you. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. That's good. Well done, team. We are not the real 9.6, the real Slim Shady. Annual planned service performance.
Thank you, and through the chair. So this is the quarterly update to Council on the non-financial service performance reporting. You'll note that this report is significantly condensed to reflect what we discussed at the Strategic Planning Committee, and in the covering report I've pulled through the measures that are basically outperforming their targets considerably, and also those that are not on track, and additional commentary pulled from what was reported by activity and group managers. happy to take any questions that I can answer, but I will likely defer to the relevant GMs on most things, and happy to take feedback on the presentation of information in the new format.
Righty, team, I know we've got questions on this one. Who wants to start different? Go for it, Councillor Scott.
Don't have too many, so it's your lucky day, Steph. Sorry, now I've just got to go back to the top. I was just checking how many I had. One of my, when I think the table is really good when we talk about reporting frequencies and year ticks. I like that. So that's my first comment. My concern is, though, that there is a lot in annual. And the management of those reports and coming to council on an annual basis sounds significant. It feels like we'll do 3 months of, getting across the line. Or do you see that is manageable? That's my question one.
Yeah, so the ones in annual, we actually generally have everyone reporting quarterly on everything. We're just keeping the reporting to council either as exceptions based of something that's significantly off track, so you're aware of it, or some of the commentary around some of the measures. Why do we need to know about this? It's probably an annual thing because it's an annual measure anyway. So there's a bit of logic in there, but most are reported in the system quarterly.
Thank you for that. Just got a question, point 8, page 86, on the measures, and I just felt like the online website and category searches was such an outlier, and I just wondered what the reasons for that was.
So this measure, when it was set up for LTP 24, the way it was measured back then and how they were, I guess, collecting their data didn't align very well with what the measure is stated. So the target seems quite disproportionate to what they're actually delivering. So it's one of those ones we're sort of stuck with for another year, but looking at what's coming from central government with the system improvements bill, we are likely going to get measures given to us by central government in order to assist benchmarking. So ones like this probably won't exist where the measure doesn't reflect the work. Yep.
That makes sense, and I actually think now you've said this to us before, so apologies. I think we've talked about that. Just a question around community partnerships and the MTFJ program and the loss of funding or the reduction of funding to that. I just wondered, is there going to be a cost to council for that, just with that shortfall?
No. The short version is that a lot of the MTFJ funding is a kind of consumable that's used as support the young people into work. We are meeting our revised targets quite well, but the costs are reasonably fixed on that, as it's basically just Stacey doing her thing. So there's not really a risk to any requirement for spend from council there.
No, that's good. And having attended the Year 11 Expo Pathways last week, and on behalf of the Mayor, what an amazing achievement those guys did, delivering that for our young people. So you would hate to lose that program in particular, because it was a fantastic day.
Not to blow our own trumpet, but I do think our MTFJ function is seen as one of the more effective ones in the country at the moment, and it's driven by that team with doing amazing things in the smell of an oily rag.
Yeah, they are doing a good job, but there will be some challenges moving forward. But it's interesting that there's so much discretion because that's government money. It's not as tight as, so that there is discretion, which is the success of the program as well. So I don't think it'll affect the results. Yeah. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to apologise in advance because I was going to actually ask this question prior to the meeting and I didn't get round to it, forgot all about it, sorry. Just wanted to ask regarding the frequency of the reporting. I didn't quite sort of understand the table. So if you could explain it to me, that would be great. So I see here, we've got the red ticks and the black ticks. So the black ticks is how we're doing it at the moment, right? And the red ticks is how we would like to be doing it. Yes? So does that mean, for example, like in that first quarter, it's just all black ticks with no red ticks? I didn't quite understand that. And then also under democracy, annual plans, reports and long-term plans adopted within statutory timeframes, just doing that once a year on an annual basis versus doing it by quarter. Could you explain that for me? Thank you.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, yes, current frequency is black ticks, proposed frequency is red ticks. So at the Strategic Planning Committee, it was discussed the benefits of reporting all of the measures in quarter one versus doing an exceptions-based report, kind of similar to the covering report for this one, that is anything that's significantly off track in quarter one. Typically, you wouldn't see anything significantly off track in quarter one or any measures that have already met their annual target. So that was the rationale behind that. You receive a lot of reports, so we want to make the ones that come up meaningful. Sorry, what was the third question?
The question was just on the annual plans, reports and long-term plans adopted within statutory timeframes, doing it annually versus doing it quarterly.
Yeah, so
What the rationale was behind that.
I don't think we need to report on whether we do an annual plan or an annual report in statutory timeframes because Council would be well aware of it. And also the way those statutory deadlines fall, it would be pointless doing it quarterly because it would only happen twice a year anyway. So yeah, I mean, we can put a highlight in the report half yearly that we've met the statutory timeframe for annual report, but I'd like to think we'd all celebrate that a little bit earlier than 4 months later.
It makes perfect sense, thank you. I just have one question just regarding the vandalism of the toilets. Do we know how much we're actually spending on the vandalism for our toilets? And if there's a better way maybe of providing toilets for the public that maybe can't be vandalised as easily? I don't know. Has anyone got an answer on that one?
Well, on the financial reporting, there is a resource code allocated to vandalism for public toilets, so pulling that out of the system would be pretty easy. So that I could put that as a prompt in the performance measure if you'd like to know.
Yeah, I would actually.
The spending on vandalism. It's potentially also in the monthly financial reporting too. And regarding public toilets, where they are, how many? I can't answer that.
About 40, isn't there, roughly? Something like that. Councillor Shannon. Yep.
Just a couple. First of all, within animal control, that there are 200 unregistered dogs. I'm just interested what that is a percentage of the total. And although I'm mindful of not blaming the cost of registration for that, because the registration for somebody to own a dog all of the costs of owning that dog should fall on the dog owner. But is cost what you are hearing is the reason why they're unregistered, Mr. Cooper?
They're the known unregistered dogs, Councillor. So there'll be many that we don't know about, but and we deal with those at the end. There's a 3-month period where people get to pay their dog registration after the 1st of July, and then we introduce a penalty. And then there's a further 3-month period where we manage registrations and make phone calls, letters, encourage owners to register. And then following that, we're typically left with a list that we work through of several hundred, and we might take appropriate enforcement action against those, or there might be other reasons for the dogs being on our records but not registered. So we just work through a process. So by the time we get to where we are now in the calendar year, we've dealt with most of that, either through enforcement or other means to resolve it. We don't just leave it open-ended and off the books like that, yeah.
So is that an extraordinary number compared to previous years, or is that in line with what we generally experience?
Typically, we're in the hundreds, or usually sort of it'd be about that. So we've got about 9,500 dogs registered, about 6,500 owners, and we have we're in the high 90s usually in terms of registration. I couldn't tell you what 200 is as a percentage, but I can see you writing down there and working it out, so that's great.
Oh, good. Thank you. And on waste management, it says here there's ECAN have raised concerns that require actions at Geraldine's Baker and Redruth. What are those concerns?
I can't answer that, and the GM who looks after waste is not in attendance, so maybe we could come back to you with a response.
Yep, that'll be fine. And following on, still on waste management, curbside, I'd be interested because we always struggle to meet this goal, and I think we've asked before what the split of this might actually be between our own rate players that might be delivering the results and some of the other waste.
Yeah, so I know that for the issue you're talking about, contamination of recycling, was it that measure?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've started taking samples from just what comes from the Timaru district versus what comes from other districts. So I imagine they'll have some data for you at some point.
Oh, that'd be good. It would just be nice that if we are doing well to be able to share that good news story rather than our locals feeling that they're not delivering if they actually are. Cool. That's all I have. Thank you.
I just have a few questions on the first part of the report for a start. So at some point, it would be really good to get the library issues split into physical versus digital so we can align funding to that going forward. I'm guessing we've set those targets, and but next time we set them, it will be good to consider that. I do wonder about, and remind me of the conversation because I've forgotten, but we seem to be measuring the food premises and going to report on that, quarters 2, 3 and 4, but the alcohol premises only annually, and I can't remember why we decided that, because I kind of feel like they're the same kind of thing and we should report both.
I can't remember either. I'll go back and watch the recording.
I think it might be based on the ALAC report that we do annually to the central government, and the data just is pulled from that.
Yeah, we do get officers to report on that in the system quarterly though, so it wouldn't be hard to add it back in.
Go for it, Pete. You might have the answer, have you?
I was just going to... One is quite pro-functional in terms of licensing for food premises because it's there. One requires a significant input from up the road here in North Street, and they pulling those resources together all the time is it's a bit all over the place. Yeah.
And I understand that, and I understand it's been issues in the past, but it has been one that we've questioned kind of at the 6-month mark and gone, what are we trying to do about that to get more towards the target at the end of the year? For only reporting at the end of the year, we kind of miss the opportunity to challenge that.
Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, in terms of liquor licensing and achieving the inspecting premises or monitoring premises, the target in the LTP, we've achieved that for the year already, so we've made a good progress, yeah.
Again, I know we would have had a conversation about this, but the only thing we don't have in that annual report are the pools. And I just feel like they should be in the annual report. So you've got one report that includes absolutely everything. And so we're going to do them in quarter 3, which I assume is after the season's finished. That makes sense. But everything else is in the annual report. And I just think it would make sense to have absolutely everything in the annual report and not have to go looking for them somewhere else.
Yeah, that one will be included in the annual report anyway. Yeah, I think this was just more highlighting the measures that are going to be received at certain points, but everything will be included in the annual report because it has to be.
I may have some others, I just need to scroll through if you want to go to somebody else.
I might pick up on, we'll pick up on we'll go from black ticks to black dots. There's a few missing. I'm assuming that you just haven't had the information on time.
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Piddington.
Well, the report's public, so I'd like an explanation. Do they not matter? Why are we not reporting on them?
No, it's simply that the information wasn't reported into the system by the user.
We have this often, and so I was just wondering at what point do we get a supplementary paper with those particular black dots? Because the last round we had black dots as well, so we're none the wiser on those areas. So
I'll just having a look at these. So if you take council housing as an example, it's got a black dot, but actually it's got green, and it has got the target Q3, 100% for the period result and 100% year to date. So actually, what I am looking at that, and I think, is that the staff are putting the information in, but the GM is not signing it off. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so there's 3 layers of reporting in the system. There's contributing data indicators, which roll up to the ones that you see. There's the unit manager accountability indicators. Some of those also include the highlights and issues for the activities. And then there's the GM activity reviews, which sit a level above that. So the sequencing of deadlines in the system is they all roll one after the other, so that when GMs go to do their activity review, which is the last bit, then all the other information is in the system as reported by the direct reports.
So we've only got one GM that's got black dots, and I will take that up with him.
Councillor Piddington.
Page 113, I was intrigued on Caroline Bay, Association Caroline Bay Hall. We thought we were getting $32,000 according to the report, but then we found out we weren't because we've got no charge under an unofficial legacy agreement. What is that? And is one hand not telling the other? Because one group was expecting it, and I'd like to know what the unofficial legacy agreement is, because that's money not coming in for the ratepayers.
I can speak to this at a high level based on what I know from when I was in a different department. So with the Caroline Bay Carnival, the revenue from that is, I guess it's what it says on the tin in the report, that it is essentially an expectation from the Caroline Bay Carnival to, I guess, honour a legacy agreement with reduced costs for using the space, which then has wider benefits for the district.
It obviously dates back to when they've invested in some of those, but let's take that offline and have a further look, I think. Yeah. Just to have a better understanding. Councillor Pye, yep.
I only actually had one other question on the report, and probably because somebody made a comment to me about this during the week as well, but we talk about how we're still having problems with contamination in our glass bins, and I would suggest if we didn't call it a glass bin, people wouldn't put glass in there that they're not allowed to put in there, and I wonder if it should be called the bottles and jars bin, because that's all you're only allowed to put in there. Because the comment made to me was, how come it's a glass bin and you can't put glass in there?
Yeah, and that's precisely why they're working with the contractor to, I guess, increase awareness about what can actually go in it. The bottles and jars bin from now on.
We can mark this day in history, eh? That's great. Councillor Jackson.
Maybe just on that same sort of theme, with a turn of phrase, maybe page 117, road fatalities target, maybe needs to be rephrased. It just doesn't quite sound right to me.
So on that, road fatalities or serious harm crashes, I think is how it's worded. So the target is to basically have less than your prior year result. We're tracking okay, but obviously one is still too many.
Councillor Harper.
Thank you. Look, just page 115. and Susie's not in the room at the moment, but I would just like to reiterate and pass on a bouquet to the roading team, the Geraldine to Arundel to Geraldine roads, fantastic. And I'm sure, Rosie, we could pass on a real compliment regarding the Geraldine to Woodbury cycleway for anybody who wants to listen. It's marvellous, it's being used. And on behalf of the representatives of Geraldine, we thank the roading team for an excellent job.
Nice, well done. Further? No, we're all pretty good. Okay, let's move to resolutions. One is receive a note, and two is approve the amended reporting frequency. Any further discussion? Happy to move. Councillor Shannon, yeah, seconder. Councillor Burt got in first. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. 9.7 is Arangi Stadium Project Funding Delegation for Chief Executive. And that's on page 129. And I think because we've removed a couple of items, we'll try and get all the public items done by sort of 12:30. I think we're on track. Yeah, go for it, Stephen.
Through the Chair, this is a really straightforward one. It's just to give or for you to delegate the Chief Executive the ability to apply for funding for the Arangi Stadium project on behalf of Council. It's just to streamline things and stop having a report to come back for you to give them permission every time. This just allows us to be more fleet of foot on these things and apply when opportunities come up rather than having to wait for a monthly cycle or having to call an extraordinary or an emergency meeting to do that. So it's wide-ranging but only applied to this single project, so it's a fairly reasonable request.
Yeah, sort of makes sense to me, just a bit of streamlining. I'm happy to move that from the Chair. Councillor Scott, happy to second that. Any discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 1 through 1, appointments for delegates for AGM 131.
Through the Chair, this is the people you send to represent you at the LGNZ AGM. The main job they have is to vote on minutes, which are the sector-wide things that you take to government that you sort of want them to work on. You are allowed up to 3 delegates, including 1 presiding delegate, to represent Timaru and its interests for the year.
Awesome. And so this is online this time because the conference has been moved from July through to but it still needs to happen at the same time. So look, it makes sense that it's me and whoever else, I guess. Just need a backup. It is the 31st of July. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, there are actually a good number of serious motions to vote on, aren't there? So will we could have our delegates have a meeting room and be in there together?
Yeah, I think so. I think ideally we would be in a room on Zoom together or Teams, whatever it is. And we'll have a look at the remits as we normally do when they come through. It'll be a few weeks before, and whether we have to have that come through council or committee as such, or just that opportunity to talk. But we haven't. I think there's been a couple that have been flicked around, but nothing too much yet. So we'll wait and see what is produced. And when the opportunity is, if we want to make a remit ourselves on anything specifically, I don't think things that have come up of late are probably relevant, but it's something to always sort of have a ear to the ground, if you like. Something that we might lead, and that could be an advocacy piece on something specific that we might want the support of LGNZ through to central government, as an example. Yeah. Councillor Scott.
Hand up.
Happy to put your hand up.
Support you, Mayor Nigel.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Appreciate it. And perfect. Okay. No, that's all good. Thank you. Appoints up to 3 delegates, and if you're interested, you're more than welcome. We'll make sure you know that the room's available and pop in, and we'll probably do it in my office or something like that. So myself, Councillor Shannon and Councillor Scott. So we'll receive a note and appoint those 3 delegates. Is there any further questions at all? No. So normally it would be those that would be going to conference would just use those people, but that's been moved obviously. So I'm happy to move that from the chair. Seconder, Councillor Thomas, thank you. Put the motion, all those in favour please say aye. Against, carried. Brilliant, thank you. Adoption of terms of reference, 9.9, that's on 1.3. Welcome, Elliot.
Through the chair, Your Worship, I'll take the paper as read. This is an updated terms of reference paper following on from November's terms of reference. Thought it would be useful to go through a couple of meeting cycles before taking us to the next level of finessing. I'll just note, taken the liberty to amend the recommendation to allow for some amendments. In reviewing this, I've noticed I've used the wrong word consent notice, needs to be changed to consent order in respect of the chairperson of the Development and Growth Committee's consultation function for resolving appeals and resource consent and planning, district plan change appeals via consent order rather than consent notice. And so if there's any other changes that we discuss, we can load them in there. This is an important governance document, and essentially it's a job description between this council and the CE. And previously we have had it integrated in one delegation manual, and that is not how it's done, and it's unhelpful. And so this has been a little bit of a long, ongoing project of mine to extract them, and then sitting behind that is a more detailed and more sort of fluid and accessible vehicle for the CE's delegations to be controlled by the CE and to be available to officers. So that's something that is happening in the background, sitting behind this. To enable us to continue to develop this, we've got a resolution there delegating authority to the CE and the Mayor to move through minor amendments to this because the operational environment continues to change. I'll just note briefly on leases and the significance threshold. I looked at other terms of references across the country and I couldn't find any with a cap on duration. And interestingly, at about, I think, 35 years, a lease becomes a deed subdivision, and then under a delegation framework, that would be a resource consent decision that this council wouldn't make. So in some ways, there's kind of a logic for there to be no cap, because at 35, a subdivision consent is required and it's a different decision maker. But other terms of reference use important thresholds that councils have identified where they want to retain control over leasing. For instance, reserves or recreational space, or other types of property. At this stage, I think the 25 years is useful, and developing the significance threshold is probably, in the medium term, a more interesting thing for officers in this chamber to work through. Just noting the Projects and Procurement Committee. So the terms of reference were circulated. We've included all of the feedback and the track changes. The officers are broadly supportive of all the amendments, but do note that with the size of that committee and the proposed changes, it does raise a risk of an imbalance between the governing board of the council, but that's entirely a matter for council to determine. But those changes have been reflected in the terms of reference that are tracked in front of you today. That'll end my introductory comments, and if you've got any questions.
Councillor Piddington.
Just on the leases, Elliot, I'm of the opinion 25 years is a long time in the current situation, forever changing, and we've had been bitten a couple of times by people coming back and saying, oh, I've got a 25-year lease. I actually think anything over 10 years should come back to the council.
That's a fair point, and obviously something that this council can impose now or at a later date.
Thoughts on that specific comment? It's pretty relevant.
I tend to agree. I had a similar question.
Some nods on that one. Is everyone comfortable? 10 years, that makes sense, or a different view? Councillor Harper?
It's okay having 25 years as long as there's an out written in there that's either party. No?
Just for clarification, through the chair, by an out, you mean inability to terminate the lease without, fair enough, but then that all of a sudden you're designing quite a detailed kind of detailed delegation there, essentially, and that's where the significance is kind of interesting, because it allows you then to direct what significance means in a more of a qualitative way, rather than having these quantitative thresholds. At this stage, I don't know what the throughput of leases is, and I haven't counted the leases in our lease register, but they're not huge, and so I don't see there any real process issues with a 10-year threshold. We don't do that many. That would be my observation on that.
Okay, cool. So I think we can probably look to make that amendment. I think there's a general nod, so we can make that amendment when the time comes. Any further questions? Councillor Pye.
I have a couple. The first one is on the hearings committee. We have a lot of stuff in there relevant to the RMA, yet we never do RMA hearings. Why is that? Have we made a conscious, never in my time, have we made a conscious decision at some point that we're just going to contract out all of our RMA hearings?
It's a good question, and we've talked about that recently. Obviously, some of us are, just redoing our own qualifications to get value out of it. Mr. Cooper, you got any comment? And I guess the question too is around support of an independent potentially. But Councillor Burt, then I'll ask Mr. Cooper to comment.
Yeah, we have in the past, but they've been, to be fair, the ones that I said on were all of a very minor nature, dealing with properties that had boundary issues and fencing and bits and pieces like that, and it really come down to the complexity of them, non-notifiable and all those sorts of things, environmental issues, and so they've always then gone to a commissioner, but we've always had council qualified staff sit on.
Mr. Cooper.
I think because we've been through you, Your Worship, because we've been going through a district plan review process, I think we've had a very risk-averse approach to decision-making around consents, and we've tried to keep the organisation as safe as possible from any litigation risk through that decision-making process. I think now that we're coming out of that district plan review process, it might be a time that we could possibly re-evaluate that approach and have some of the less complex RMA stuff come before a hearings panel. We'd be quite happy to do as governors might direct us. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think on that, maybe let's take that offline, and those that have that qualification, we can have a discussion around it. Perhaps that's all okay? Yeah, go for it.
A couple more minor details. On the People Performance Appointments Committee, I think we've confused ourselves about whether we've got 4 or 5 councillors, or I can't count, but one or the other. We changed 4 to 5, but we've only got 4 listed there.
Which committee, Michelle, was
People,
that? Oh,
Performance and Appointments, but that's on page 181. But that's a minor detail. And then I think my only other one, but just let me quickly scroll through, is in the, is it Downlands? Yeah, the Downlands Committee Terms of Reference. and I've just recently joined this committee, and I'm a bit surprised about how the budgeting works. And there's nothing in the terms of reference about them endorsing, promoting. It feels to me they have absolutely zero oversight of the budget, if I'm honest. And I thought it should start in that committee and then be adopted by the various councils, but it doesn't seem to work that way. I wonder if it should, sorry.
I think you're right. That needs to go to the committee to then come back to the two councils to change this. We can't change it here. And I've just lifted and shifted it. Looking forward, the Downlands Committee is unlikely to be able to survive water reform in any event. So in some ways it might be easier to do it on a meeting by meeting basis over the rest of the year. I think there's only 2 or 3 meetings left for the year, but I'd be surprised if it exists after 1 July next year.
Thank
but
you.
It's certainly something we can put on the committee, the Downlands Water Supply Committee agenda.
Well, given the budget's pretty much been set already and there's probably no opportunity to change it between now and when we set our annual plan, there's probably, and then by the time they set the next one, the Water CCO may or may not be in charge. I'm okay to leave it as it is. That was my only other question.
Thank you. Further? Councillor Scott.
Ellie, I have quite a few questions and I think I tried to answer them myself, but it got a bit all over the place. One of my questions is around the water services power. And I just need some clarity. So what you've written in there, I'm concerned that as a councillor...
Sorry, can you just reference a page?
Hang on, okay, hang on. No, sorry, that's what I mean, because I wrote questions in the main report and then I wrote questions in the...
I think I could take you to 172.
In the terms of reference.
173 is the track changes to the count.
Okay, sorry, that's where I was saying it was quite tricky. So my question is, 173, is as a councillor, we've delegated powers to our subcommittee, and I absolutely think that's right. But when the money is currently being spent as our ratepayers' money, what concerns me is I have lost control as a councillor to my ratepayer on what that expenditure is. And you've basically, in this terms of reference, has delegated all authorities to the joint committee, and it doesn't come back to full council to say, okay, we're going to go off and spend $2 million of Timaru District ratepayers' money. And I just wondered how do we continue to get that oversight when not all of us aren't involved in that? I'm not sure if it's a terms of reference question. I just need to be sure I understand the full council gets oversight into the level of expenditure of Timaru District ratepayer money.
I think I can start answering that. So this council and the other shareholding council, Mackenzie, have allocated budget to the establishment process, and then the 2 councils have signed a commitment agreement about the principles for how that money is then managed through the establishment process, with certain items transferring to the water organisation as a debt to the water organisation, and then other items need to be worked through, with the JSC having oversight of that budget and how the delineation between a water organisation cost and another cost is, but it all sits within the original envelope that the council has set, and so the JSC doesn't of itself have any ability to draw down or to commit funds. Yeah.
Understood. Yep, no, that sounds good. Okay. On that same page, I had just a query around clause 32 and 33, powers to around the iwi participation agreement. That is new to this, and I just understand where has it come from and what does it actually mean?
Yeah. So the only new thing there is that I've added in the English iwi participation agreement. The original delegation manual had that provision, and that sits in legislation, and it essentially is an ability for delegating aspects of resource management functionality to an iwi group. And so it's a power that sits with council, it's statutorily available, and all it is doing is making it clear that it sits there.
And we just previously had missed it off, or?
It is just previously, I think, flown under the radar in the delegations manual because it was such a cumbersome document that allocated all of the CE's powers plus the various council powers, and so it was just difficult to get through. That's one of the benefits of disentangling the two layers of power allocation at council.
There is an example. No, that's right. Just on that, there's one example that I know of around this area that sits with an ECAN, and they're using that for, I can't remember what it was, something in and around engagement or something, but it's just a tool if you so wish, yeah.
I understand in the Waikato they've used it quite successfully for allocating monitoring functions to iwi, and so it's a way of sharing the load, but also bringing in people into the resource management framework in an actual active way. Yeah.
Not sure if we can compare Timaru to Waikato, but anyway, that's all good. I just want to move to projects and procurement and a couple of things in there. I just wondered why in the functions we so heavily single out the Theatre Royal and museum development and the Aorangi Park. And the reasons I say that, because in 12 months they're going to be successful projects and embedded in our community. And so really the functions of that committee is not just those 3 projects, it's significant projects. So I just wondered, we had talked about, we're naming them, but I just wondered, this office is obviously stuck with keeping it there. I was just wondering why those in particular have been singled out.
They've been singled out, I guess, because I was asked to. But I think the fundamental tension here is that the council the council makes a decision on a project, and then the theory is that they allocate an oversight function to the committee. And so therefore, whether or not it's significant or not is somewhat irrelevant, and it's more a question for this council as to what they want to delegate. And so it's an a priori question: does this council want to delegate X, Y, or Z project? Not all of the significant ones go there as a matter of course. So that's the tension. I mean, you can do whatever this council wants to do. Yeah.
With regards to the scope change or variations, in the start of the report, it sort of says, we put it in there, but officers don't think it should be in there. Not quite like that. But in the...
It was a little nuanced. But,
it was a little bit like that. And then there's the track change document that has it in there. So I'm just confirming it is in there, because the rationales for those two is not to be annoying and forever having it come back and look at variations in scope change. The conversation at the councillor table was more around protecting contingency. And we seem to have always had this thought that, we can just go off and spend the entire budget. But if we can actually, and that's the rationale for that. So I'm just making sure everyone is still on the same page with that being included in there, because I think it's very valuable where I felt like the officers were thinking, that's annoying. So that's a question probably to my fellow councillors.
I don't think officers see that as annoying. This is around the theatre? Which?
Through the chair, I believe it's paragraph 21, and I can be, I'm happy to discuss this, of course. It's just noting that it is a large committee, and this is an increase in power that is not envisaged in the original structure. The original structure was that these committees would have none, if any, decision-making power. And so officers are simply noting that it does risk unbalancing the subordinate relationship with council, and then returns to the original sort of concept that was recorded in the terms of reference passed in November, that it would be up to the council on a case-by-case basis to allocate the parameters of the oversight that this committee would exercise in respect of projects allocated to it.
understand that. I think the larger risk is that coming back at the end of the project, if we look at the art gallery and it was completely exhausted for unscoped, variations. So I think it's something that can be reviewed in the future, but at the moment, it would be great to still have that in place. Mr. Trainer?
I'm confused as what, is this?
Start in the main body of the.
Is this on 183 or 182?
Through the chair, the commentary from officers is at paragraph 21, which is at page 135 of the agenda, but perhaps it's easier to look at the tracked changes suggested, and I'll get the page number there.
Sorry, just pause for a moment. We've just come on to ours, so I just need to move a resolution that council suspend standing order 4.2 to allow the meeting to continue beyond 2 hours. Thank you, Councillor Pye, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Go for it. Back to.
I think the. I'll leave it.
The actual tracked delegations would be, they're found at page 183, and they are amended delegation 4 and 6. And I could read them out if that's easier. Or, no.
Everyone gets the picture. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to say in 21, anything we put to procurement and projects and procurement committee, there's no need for any of it to go to council then, because actually this has got the majority. So any who are not on this committee, that they can't influence any of the decisions.
Not being on that committee, I'm happy with the terms of reference as they're drafted. I think it's the appropriate place for scope changes to be approved.
Alrighty, further. Chris, Philip? Any no? OJ? No, all pretty good. Okay. Sorry, what was the other change that we needed to make? It was around on the lease. Yeah. So we just need to make an amendment within that. Is that appropriate within the resolution?
Certainly, that's what the red 2A is leading into. So 2B could be the lease threshold is 10 years as opposed to 25.
Yep. Thank you.
This is follow on from Councillor Scott, so is that from me right?
Yeah, sorry, Chris, go. Yes.
I'm still a bit unclear as to exactly how a project meets a certain criteria to be delegated or to be put into the projects and procurement committee. I mean, does that need to be more explicitly stated, sort of thing? It just says significant, I think. At least Councillor Scott's been using.
Through the chair, significance is a very standard open-ended sort of pivot word in local government because it feeds into your significance engagement policy and allows for a reasonably sort of constrained conversation about significance. So just noting that's why the word is useful. But going back to the theory behind the committees is that the council would go, yeah, we'll do this project, pass the resolution, budget, so forth, and then say, and now it will be governed by the procurement, projects and procurement committee on this basis. And so that was the theory, that it would be front-end loaded. The council would say what projects went and what they wanted to be managed, I guess. Yeah.
the council is making that explicit delegation for that.
Yes, and the theory is it's on a case-by-case basis to allow for that oversight to be targeted and reflect what the council wants to get out of that kind of type of extra, additional oversight. I could, so the three examples that we're currently and have now been explicitly there, the council set up working groups.
Okay. They don't need to be like cost about, so they can be, we could be in this room and go, reputational, we say, okay, we want to actually monitor that and it will come in from this table. Unsealed roads, that could come in. No, just
Alrighty, anything further, Elliot? No, comfortable? So we'll just look to the recommendations on the screen. We've got in the red the changes that Elliot talked to, consent notice to consent order, and then B is amend lease threshold to be 10 years rather than 25 years. Everyone comfortable with that? If they are, can I have a mover? Yep, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Councillor Burton, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Perfect. Thank you. It's 9.9, so we have removed 10 and 11, so we go now to 9.12, temporary road closure applications, and I think we've got Selena. Thank you, welcome. And this one is page 257. Welcome back, Selena. Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be back. This is the Land Transport Group standard report requesting temporary road closures for events. Section 342 and Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act. We are requesting approval in this report to close sections of Stafford Street, Church Street and Allen Street, and this is to facilitate the Matariki Night Market on the 9th of July. The night market is also seeking funding from the Community Events and Programs budget to fund the traffic management for the event. The market sees Timaru's main street transformed into a celebration for Matariki, bringing together multicultural food vendors, artisan craft stalls and performers. This creates a vibrant, welcoming atmosphere in our city centre, and it's become one of the highlights on our annual events calendar. So we take the report as read, and over to you guys.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions in that regard? Councillor Burt?
No, I think we need to do it. It's one of those things that's intrinsic now in the main street and what we do every year. Just one thing that got to me, and I'm not usually like to draw down into this sort of detail, but that temporary traffic management plan preparation of $970 plus GST. And then the implementation cost of it. I know there's a lot of intersections that have to be transversed in terms of blocking them off and what have you, and there's other parts to it and everything. I don't understand that significant, that amount of cost when I used to do them on Before You Dig and have them approved in a day and in place straight out of the Coptum and what have you. Sorry, but that's a question.
So this is part of moving to the New Zealand Guide for Temporary Traffic Management, which is a departure from the old Coptum system. So it's more of a risk-based approach. Our contractors do need to have a look at this specific site and determine what is required. Sorry? Yes, this is the cost. We are about to undertake a review that we do annually to seek quotes from multiple suppliers to make sure that we are getting the best deal for management of these events.
Understand that they're all set a benchmark, and that's what they do, because if they need all that information, the previous one had done it last year, would already have, and could resubmit the same plan and bits and pieces. But yeah, no, thank you.
Alrighty, happy to move. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thomas, question?
I wondered about the current project that's going on the corner of Strathallan and Stafford Street. Will that be finished? I mean, I'm sorry, there was a date sometime in July. I'm just hopeful that it is going to be finished in time.
It is finished, isn't it?
I haven't got that information with me currently, but I can double check the start and finish dates for that, but I believe we would have considered that as part of the application. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha, the current stuff. No, that's cool. I'm happy to move, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Burt, second it. Any further discussion? No, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And then we have 9.13, Undersize stock underpass approval request on Mays Road, 264. Did you want? I'm just waiting for Will. Yeah, no worries. Well, we just stay there, and we might, we'll wait for Will, and we'll move on to 9.14, which is council financial performance. Oh, look at this. Will's here. Will. No, perfect timing. Alrighty, underpass stock, undersized stock underpass. Welcome.
So I'm covering for Susie at short notice, so bear with me. So this report is seeking council's approval for a proposed stock underpass which is to be constructed on Mays Road. The construction of stock underpasses is enabled under council stock underpass policy and is usually done at the landowner's own expense. The policy requires that stock underpasses stretch the full width of the road reserve. This is basically to make sure that we retain unrestricted access to the full legal road corridors, so that if we need to do anything in the future, we've got that access. In this case, the owner is proposing a design that would be shorter than what the policy currently allows for. You'll see the diagrams and the attachments there. However, it would be a cost-effective option for the landowner, and officers considered that it's a practical solution with the road being rural and low volume. We don't anticipate it would cause any undue safety concerns, and the risks around council access could be managed via the legal agreement as explained in the report. Take the report as read. Anything I've missed? Well,
through you, Your Worship. Yeah, just essentially as part of that, we do have a legal agreement that needs to be signed. So if anything needs to be removed from the road reserve, we could essentially do that. It's just a little bit of notice, and that it's kind of worked out between both parties.
Too easy. Councillor Shannon.
I think the team needs to be congratulated that this is the sort of thing that we've been asking for years in terms of how can we help, rather than, oh no, this is the rule. I think this is absolutely brilliant and helps to enable people to do what they want to do very, very well. My only request would be that the risk is managed through the legal agreement, that we do make sure that's in there, but I'm fully supportive. I think this is wonderful. Good work.
So you're happy to move that, Councillor Shannon? Thank you. Yeah, happy to second. Councillor Pye. Yep, questions? Go for it.
I've got a couple of questions here. I'd be sort of, as I look at the map here, they've made this, the design is as tight as you could get it. Generally, is it for dairy cows? I mean, I've never been to this site. All I can think of is there's so much roadside there that's not taken with this thing. So I'm just sort of imagining the good old boys on a Saturday night ripping down this road, and there's a culvert or an increase of risk there because the ditches feeding into the underpass are right on the side of the road. How much is it saving this guy? And it just seems logical to have it to the boundary of the roadside.
I guess,
What's the point of making it half-assed?
Maybe two points to the question. One, that it is a low volume road, so it is just a request. However, I guess the safety side of things is evaluated when they have a service request or an engineering design request. So at that time, we will look at appropriate road safety barriers, etc., that would be required as part of their application. So yeah, essentially they need to mitigate any effect of what that is. And yeah, second part of that, I don't know how much cost they are saving, but if they think it's appropriate and with such a low volume road, that they're able to prove that there is vehicle movement available.
We're talking a couple of extra chunks of road and culvert, not culvert, but square infrastructure to put in there. I just cannot see the point of not insisting on it going to the road. And then his underpass would come in on his property as he comes down, across and up. And of course that's going to fill up with water sometimes, unless he's got so there'll be trucks there sucking the after heavy rain events. There's an effluent tank or something at the bottom of this, isn't it?
No, that's a swale.
Yeah, so
I just about have to eyeball this to make a real decision on it. It just doesn't look right.
Yeah, I guess the decision is just allowing it to be reduced if agreed to, but otherwise, yes, it would be a requirement for them to go forward if it wasn't acceptable, and then it would follow policy.
Well, then you're going to open if this goes ahead. Well, look, here we go. Next door neighbours into it too.
I suppose that's a question I had, is what precedent are we actually setting here for the future requests? I think that's what you're saying, Philip, is are we opening up the gate?
Through the...
There's a tunnel.
Through your worship. If we are making a significant decision with a policy, then we need to go through the Section 80 process of identifying the inconsistency and the reasons, which I believe this paper does do, but our intention to amend that policy or plan to accommodate this decision to enable a actual reasoned and structured process for any future applicant to attempt to acquire this deviation from our policy. So I'm totally unfamiliar with the facts and the policy itself, but Section 80 does apply here if it is significant. And that requires us to, my advice would be that the recommendation, if it's accepted, to instruct a paper to amend this policy to come back here where we can work through and make sure that this isn't turned into an unthought through exception. Sorry, that's a lot of words, but basically addressing the concern you've got, which is the next person that rocks up, what are we going to tell them? And it's, well, we should have thought this through in our policy and amended it. If it's good enough for this one, then it should be explained in that policy so that,
Okay, my question is a bit softer. And mine was just more, could this underpass constrain future transport or infrastructure upgrades along Maze Road, noting the low volume? I have no idea what the volume is, but the volume, I just need to be reassured in my mind that we're not going to constrain ourselves.
Yeah, so the legal agreement itself covers council, so it's not in perpetuity. It is very much an agreed time frame between both parties. So we could say in 3 months you have to remove that, and that would be a condition of the legal agreement. But yeah, it would just be an appropriate agreed time frame.
That's that title on each side.
Correct, yeah. So it would be a covenant on the title.
I noticed I authorised this report, so I better read it. So when this farmer decides to close his dairy farm, do we have to make good the or in years to come, do we have to make good the actual underpass?
So as part of that agreement, they have to, essentially pre-construction, they have to do it at their cost.
Talking at the end of it. At the end, say in 20 years' time, they don't want the underpass or it's falling to pieces or whatever.
They would have to remove it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we did have a mover and a seconder based on the 9.42 metre underpass with its cost savings, etc. We had some further debate. Is there, from the mover and seconder, I think Councillor Shannon was the mover and Councillor Pye was the seconder, are you comfortable with the resolution as is to put forward? Yep. So is there any further discussion? I'll put that motion. It'll either get voted or voted down.
We go and have a look at it and kick it into next month?
To be fair, we shouldn't be looking at it. That's what these guys are for, and we pay them to be specialists in this area.
Yeah,
So
question.
just rereading it again. So the benefit to the landholder is basically a cost saving.
Yeah,
There isn't actually any other benefit.
These are relatively expensive. They'd be tens of
I'm
thousands
sure
of
that
dollars.
there's no other. I mean, I know putting it in obviously has a benefit around moving stock and that sort of thing, but this particular design over the standard design is just a cost saving. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Could we charge them for the use of the road? I'm joking.
Okay. Without any suggested amendments, we've got a mover and a seconder. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, raise your hands if you're against. Yeah. Or no, would you like that noted? Councillor Harper, on the record. Councillor Thomas. Yeah. Motion carried. Thank you. Interesting stuff. I didn't think that would be as interesting, but it certainly was. Never can tell. Welcome, Tyler. Yeah, we'll do this and then yeah. So we'll keep going, team. We've got 9.14. Welcome, Andrea and Tyler. We'll do the council financial performance report and then we can break and come back and do PX after lunch. And so we are on 269 page-wise. Thank you. Go for it, team.
Good afternoon. So attached is the April year-to-date financial report. The report also includes the lists of activities which are currently over budget and other expenditure with commentary added, and a list of activities where the March forecast is above the full year budget, also with commentary. And I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Nice. Go to questions. Yep, Stu, go for it.
Just on capital expenditure on page 269, am I reading this right that to April we've spent 43 million, and May and June we're going to spend 28 million, like 35% of our capital budget's going to be spent in 2 months?
Yes, so that is the forecast that was completed by GMs and activity managers.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that number was correct.
There'll be some large invoices coming in because the projects are actually well underway. So we expect a large,
Just
across the
timing.
road and, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a bit of road at the end of the financial too, I'd imagine. Yeah. But no, you're right, it's a big number, yeah. Any further questions, team? I'll go Councillor Shannon.
This will have to be for Chief Executive, sorry, because Andrew's not here. Just with regards to cemeteries, the shift to more cremation's been taken into account, which the revenue is not as good, obviously. Has that been taken into account for the annual plan for the next year?
I couldn't hear you properly.
With the cemeteries, for more cremations happening than burials, we don't make as much off those, and that's the trend. Has that been taken into account for the next financial year?
Yes, so that would have been included in the forecast, and then the budget was based off the current forecast.
Perfect, thank you. And within building control, I couldn't help but notice, because I've lost the page that it's on, so I'm going to have to go off my notes here. Where are we? Sorry, bear with me. The rates revenue doesn't cover much more than the use of this consenting software. The consenting software is very, very expensive. Is that an ongoing cost at that level? And how much extra work will be required to help close that gap between the revenue and the expenditure if we are having to spend 1.6 mil on software every year just to get the ratepayers' contribution down?
Through you, Your Worship, it should be a straightforward in and out transaction with a net zero being the outcome for the budget, because we've simply transferred the cost per consent of the software from us, as it was under the LTP, to the user, who now pays per consent that goes through. So we collect it on behalf of Objective Build, and then we push it out the door to the Objective Build. So it comes in as revenue and then goes out. So I'm not sure why there's a small error, but I think it'll iron itself out.
No, so the total amount for the consent software is revenue in, expenditure out, and that's about $170,000. So I think the figure you're looking at there is total other expenses. So the comment in there about use of consent software is about the variance, not about the total amount.
I'm busy trying to find it.
This is not a big one, but with regards to the gallery, I see at the end of the year we're only going to be, is it just a small amount over budget for the forecast to be over budget at the end of the financial year by, I don't remember, I can't find it. But the replenishment of the retail stock, how much that actually cost? I know it's taken from a bequest, some of that. In our retail operations, because the museum will be the same, when we're stocking for retail, how is that budgeted? Is it just based on what we had in stock last year? Or in a difficult trading environment, should we be restocking our retail at a much smaller level that reflects sales? I wonder how it's done and calculated.
That would be a question for that individual activity, and Stephen may be able to answer, but if we had that question by midday yesterday, we might have been in a better position to answer it.
I can give you it's not the most sophisticated retail operation, to be honest, but some of it is forecast on the size and importance of the current exhibition that's on. Say the one that's currently running is extremely high profile and of national scale, so there are some things like books that are slightly more expensive. So it's a bit lumpy in its spending, but there's a general sort of base level of stock that we would forecast each year.
I'll ask you a question differently. So do we hold the stock in the balance sheet or are we expensing it?
That particular stock is expensed.
So it's expensed as they buy it. Okay, so they're not putting into stock holdings. Yeah, they're paying for it as they buy it. They're not paying for it as they sell it. Typically, you would buy the stock and you put it in your balance sheet, and then you would, well, that's not what we do.
The only department that actually happens with is the swimming pools, because they have a lot of stock. The materiality of the stock that the museum and the art gallery hold is immaterial in the scheme of the whole council.
I think it was Councillor Jackson, then Councillor Pye, and then I'll go outside.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've set myself a goal of a minimum of at least one financial question per meeting, but I think I may have two, so bear with me. Operating result, $15.8 million surplus. Budget expected was a $7.6 million deficit. That's a massive swing of $23.4 million. So would it be fair, and maybe this question be directed to the CE, would it be fair to say that this is a real surplus, or is this just a deferred cost surplus? For those people who are listening at home.
It's not deferred cost. It's driven mainly through grants. So the $6.6 million coming in from the Aorangi Stadium as grants. There's $2 million coming in from, the theatre, $6.6 million, the Aorangi $2 million. There's some additional subsidised roading came in that wasn't budgeted. So a lot of those items are creating that surplus. Plus, we are under budget on expenses by $16.2 million, and that is driven through a number of items, such as reduced staff costs, which we're not budgeted for from the restructure, about $3 million there. The interest is lower because of interest rates, and also we didn't draw as much debt while we were slightly behind on our capital, and we found a lot of savings in our expenses. So there's a combination of a number of things that have created that.
Also a depreciation adjustment too, isn't there?
Yeah. There's depreciation now. So, but a year end, there is to be some write-offs. So there's going to be the thick end of about $10 million of write-offs, $8 million for the theatre, some other write-offs for various items that have been found, such as you can...
So with the infringements, the process around the write-off of infringements that we won't collect.
Just to the second part of my question, if that's okay. So the depreciation variance includes corrections of previous roading asset errors. So can we be assured that they're now fully resolved?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we were Councillor Pye.
I had a question which you answered prior to the meeting around the total income, and when we look at the debt to income limit. And I know I asked this question last time, but I'm still concerned that when we report on that, we're not taking out one-off grants, because if we take out one-off grants like the theatre and the stadium, and there was some maybe better off funding, that makes a $30 million difference to our available funds, and I think that's material enough that councillors should be made aware of that every month. Because that's like a third of our available funds, and so we were reporting on that, and I know you gave me an answer last month on why we're not anymore, but I really think we should go back to that reporting.
Yeah, so I think with the next report, since we're so close to the annual plan being adopted for next year, we will put the annual plan for next year in there, and then make that adjustment around the grants and subsidies, because majority of the grants and subsidies next year are actually tied up with roading. So there isn't that one-off, icing on top of the cake scenario. So next report we'll put in the annual plan numbers and remove those. Yeah.
Thank you. And then my next two questions, one of them I've asked before as well, and it's just about the ownership of these budgets. And we have a lot of stuff in the variance around phasing, and I've asked this before, but how confident are you that when you do the annual plan, we've got the phasing right? Because this is an ongoing issue. And then I have one other.
So part of the MAGIC program, it actually allows for an automatic phasing of the budget. And so it actually will look at last year's actual figures. So whereas in the past, it's been left to managers to predict what their ups and downs are, but actually the system will actually be able to do that as a starting point, with the managers then reviewing whether or not it's reasonable. Yeah.
And my last figure is I struggle with having a huge amount of confidence in the forecasting when there's 3 or 4 or 5 lines where our financial 25-26 year-end forecast is less than our actual year-to-date. Again, it's more of a comment on ownership of budgets by individual budget holders and who's doing the reforecasting. Just doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Sorry. Actually, a question in them, was it?
No. Yeah.
I guess the forecasting was done at the end of March. Yeah, they should know.
Further questions aside?
I think they do have ownership of their budgets, and they do work to their budgets. They're just not very good at forecasting. It's not their skill. So that's something we need to think about. Who does that then? Who's best to do that? And how much time do you want to use doing the forecast? I think that's something we need to think about.
I think the forecasting is really, really important when we don't have our phasing of our budgets right, because I always actually look at the forecast and where we're going to end at the end of the year as opposed to where we're out from budget at a point in time when we know the phasing isn't quite right. And so I think the forecasting is really important. Perhaps if we get the phasing right, the forecasting will become less important.
Alrighty, my favourites over this side. I'll see I've renamed you. How's that? Any questions? Nothing further. If not, we'll go to the resolution. That is, the council receive a note, summary of financial results to 30th April. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Can I have a second? Aye. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. That takes us to the break team. Thank you, Tyler and Andrea. And so we're 108, so I think we'll come back for the PX elements at 1:40. So that gives half an hour, 20 to 2. Just move.